All right, in week 6, early explorers. This covers a lot of explorers that are in here. It's going to start out and it's going to talk about Magellan. Okay. It talks on the front page. It talks about Henry the Navigator. Was Henry? What was he really known for? Yeah, he was known. He wasn't. He got together navigators and cartographers. What are cartographers? Map makers. Got them together. He got the best that he could find. Okay? He didn't really go out that far, but he did sail. He was back, he died in 1400 something, and this was way before, because Columbus came to America, and when did he sail the ocean blue? No, 1492. Columbus sailed the ocean blue, okay? And so this is even before Columbus that he was known for this. Now, a lot of these people, they did not travel very far. Even when Columbus took off to come over to America, there were people that were thinking, hey, you travel that far west, you're going to fall off the earth. Because a lot of people thought that the earth was flat. He would go so far and he'd fall off. Okay? So Columbus sort of got rid of that theory. A lot of these people also were known for their astronomy. Okay? Knowing where the stars are. And what they would do is, if they were sailing west, they would keep the North Star to their right. They always had to keep an eye out for the North Star. Because at night, they didn't have the sun going from east to west. During the daylight hours, they would keep track of where the sun was. These were their navigational tools. Okay? Now, also, back with Henry the Navigator, they didn't move far from the coast. In other words, they would go along coastlines, but they'd keep an eye on the coast so they knew where they were going. And the map makers had to make it from there. Then we moved on to the inside, and we talked about the early explorers. The one that they talked about was Magellan. Okay? You're going to need to know for the test some of the places that he went and the order that they go in. You're going to have your paper to help you, but one of his things is going to be a timeline stating did this, he did this, then he went here, then he went there, then he died, then Pigafetta was the one that ended up taking it all, or Cano was the one that took it all the way back to Portugal, to where they started. And it took them 1,081 days. It's like 3 years. 3 years to go all the way around. But you're gonna have to know what he did, where he went. He had to go down around South America, and down there where the Atlantic and the Pacific meet, there is a area that's known as the Straits of, what's his name? Magellan. Straits of Magellan. And what he was doing was trying to find a way around. And once he got around, then he headed up, crossed over the equator, got into the Philippine Islands, and that's where he converted one group of people there to Christianity. The next group, they didn't like it, and he was shot and killed with a poisoned arrow and died there. but you're gonna have to know that. Then you're also gonna have to know about Pigafetta. He was one that was one of the 18 survivors or whatever that made it back all the way around and made it back, okay? And he did some writings. These writings are primary or secondary sources?
Primary?
Primary. They came straight from him. He was actually there, and he wrote all this. So what he wrote is a primary source. If I were to sit and tell you about it, because I looked it up and found out that Pigafetta did this, and Kano was the one that took it all the way around, Magellan was there,
Secondary?
I'm a secondary. I'm a secondary source, not a primary. Primary is when you're actually there. Then you had Vasco da Gama. Da Gama went from Africa to India. And he did it in like 32 days. 30-something days, I think it was. Sailed across. Well, the thing is he, 23 days. He had a wind behind him. So this wind was pushing him and took him all the way over to India, got there in 23 days. He went and got spices, and that was the main thing that they were after back in those times, was spices. They were looking for gold and silver, but the other thing that they were getting were spices. Salt was very important because they could put it on the meat and it would preserve the meats, okay, to where they wouldn't go rotten as quick. But these were spices that they were looking for. Then when he turned around to head back, it took 132 days. Because then instead of going with the wind, he's having to go straight into the wind. And when you go straight into the wind, you don't go straight, you zigzag back and forth. And that's how you're gonna get back. It took him 132 days. A lot of his sailors ended up with a disease called scurvy. Scurvy is just a lack of vitamin C. So if you were to start eating a lot of fruits, lemon, well, oranges, tangerines, grapefruit, they have a lot of vitamin C in them. And if you watch on, when you get an orange juice and you look on the side of it, big vitamin C, they even have those things out for when you catch a cold or about to catch a cold. They're called Emergen C, and that's vitamin C. That's supposed to help you from catching colds. So that's in there also. Then we moved on to Mel Fisher. Mel Fisher was born in Indiana, middle of the United States. Moved to California when he wanted to open a dive shop. And he was the first in California to open one. Got married out there, his wife, and as you saw in the movie, stayed underwater for 50 hours, okay? Because she had the dive tanks on and everything, set a world record at that time. 50 hours, it's over 2 days in the water. Oh, wait. So, but what he did was he then moved from California to the Keys, the Florida Keys, and started searching for treasures. Because a lot of these boats took off with these treasures filled with gold, silver, gems, all this stuff. And they didn't know about hurricanes. And so some hurricanes came along and wiped out the ships and sunk them. And so now they are out trying to find some of these sunken ships that never made it back to Spain or Portugal. And he found one, which was the Atocha. When he found it, it was estimated in 1985, it was estimated at $450 million. Like I was telling you earlier today, that might be worth $600 million today, because it's 35 years later, and the price of gold and silver have gone up. But this was a huge find. And since he found this, they called that the mother lode, okay? And that was the mother lode that he found. Then on the back of yours, you will be doing this later about more early English settlers or explorers. They talk about Henry de Soto. Don't we have a De Soto Park around here? Down at the Skyway? Okay, well, Henry de Soto came in through around Tampa Bay and ended up going up through Florida, into Georgia, over to Alabama, Mississippi, but back then they weren't those states. He was just going through the land. Ended up going all the way over to where? What famous spot?
Kansas.
No.
No.
Where's this hurricane heading?
Louisiana?
Louisiana. What's the famous river in Louisiana?
Mississippi?
The Mississippi River. He was the one that they say was the first to probably cross the Mississippi River, and he ended up dying there, okay? Then they talked about Balboa. He was another one. This is all in the back of yours. Balboa was down in South America, Mexico area. You have Francisco Coronado. He was one that went through the southwestern United States. He was the one that said that was probably the first Spanish explorer to see what?
The Pacific Ocean.
No, close. What else is out there in Arizona? Nope.
Desert?
What's in the desert in Arizona?
Tahini. There's no the in Tahini.
He ran into Indians out there, but there was a big hole. What was that big hole?
Grand Canyon.
The Grand Canyon. He was probably the first Spanish explorer to see that. He was out looking for, and it says in here, he's trying to find these golden cities, but he never found any silver or gold. But he did find the Grand Canyon. Hernando Cortez was another one that left. He was the one that went into Mexico and raided the Aztec and ended up getting a lot of their gold and silver and jewels. And then you had Francisco Pizarro, okay? They also talked in the movie about another one. This isn't on your test, but it's more interesting because it's here in Pinellas County. There was one that landed down in St. Petersburg. And if you go down Keene Road, it turns into Starkey, and then it turns into Park Street. And as you keep going on that road, when it's Park Street down there, it turns into a brick road, which is bricks down there. And on the right side, there is a place where Panfilio Narvaez landed. And there's a big sign that says it right there. And he was one that they talked about in the movie. Narvaez that's a place where he landed at down there. But this is week 6. You need to know these things. Don't forget about making no bones about this. That's where they found the 10,000-year-old woman that was located down here in the Caribbean Sea, okay? But they did testing on her and found out that she was from this area over here. And they thought that she crossed up here where they have the natural land bridge in the wintertime. And so they're trying to figure out how she got here, because that's a long way to travel, okay? And so what they're thinking is that it wasn't just walking, going across the land bridge and like that she might have been in a boat, okay? And so that's what that part was in there. Okay, Gabby?